Marie-Amélie George is a legal scholar and historian whose work focuses on the American LGBT rights movement. She graduated from Columbia Law School in 2007 and expects to receive her PhD from Yale University later this year. Her dissertation is titled Deviant Justice: Transforming of Gay and Lesbian Rights in America. In it, she shows how incremental shifts at the state and local level radically reformulated American law. In 2017, she wrote an article in the Alabama Law Review titled Expressive Ends: Understanding Conversion Therapy Bans. In her law review, she shows that professional counselors do not practice conversion therapy, but rather non-licensed ministers and counselors. Conversion therapy is no longer part of the medical mainstream. It is also affirmatively a religious practice.
And I think that is the reason why the bill specifically states it is aimed at regulating licensed healthcare providers, which is a legitimate function of the state.
I just wanted to clarify, make sure everybody's clear, this bill is being brought forward by our licensed mental health professionals.
As we've talked to the healthcare practice, the professionals in the practices, they really believe that this step of making it unprofessional conduct further cements and also creates a mechanism outside of just the criminal justice process to ensure that healthcare practitioners aren't engaging in these practices. I'm loath to regulate healthcare because I'm not a healthcare expert, but the professions themselves have brought this forward as a necessary step to protect children in Washington. That's why I'm presenting it to you.
Are we actually addressing the right provider group?
Why have the LGBT rights advocates expended so much effort and political capital on laws that do not reach conversion therapy's primary providers? The law's proponents are using the statutes to create a social norm against conversion therapy, thus broadening the ban's reach to the religious practitioners the law cannot directly regulate. Law can change social meaning of an action. It may also alter a person's beliefs. This is a strategy Marie-Amélie refers to as expressive ends. It appears proponents are wanting to leverage the credibility of the medical profession to change people's thinking. This plan was on display on January 11, 2018 during Senate committee testimony. Nicholas Oakley from the Center for Children and Youth Justice claimed his research revealed mass trauma through Washington state due to conversion therapy.
But the one question I have is when you're talking about the treatments of some of the youth, a lot of what we heard before wasn't that they were being provided from a medical doctor, but a lot of them were clergy and other entities, but they don't seem to be included in this bill.
I believe that's correct. And through our research was, some of it was formal research and some of it was just talking to folks across the state. So we don't have the data to speak, to sort of distinguish what was medical providers and what was otherwise. But I would like to also say that some bills, and I think this is one of them, really, set norms and reflect our values. And I think the importance of that cannot be, again, overstated.
California legislation, New Jersey legislation have both been upheld against constitutional challenges that were brought by people who oppose the legislation.
How can this be when the laws take away a parent's right to choose what's best for their child? And what about rights of autonomy and self-determination?
As a minor, it is incredibly concerning to me that under state law, I am able to obtain an abortion without my parents' knowledge. Yet under this proposed bill, I would be unable to choose what kind of therapy I wish to receive from a therapist. If I'm considered to be smart enough to make my own healthcare decisions, then I should be considered smart enough to make my own healthcare decisions and choose what kind of therapy would best suit me. My question for you would be, why is it that the state can legislate and dictate what kind of therapy I should be able to choose for myself?
LGBT rights groups are identifying themselves as the protectors of youth, rather than religious conservatives. It is the coercion that adolescents face from their parents and community that has convinced legislators to act. A radical reformulation of typical child protection arguments. Now you know why there's so much effort to convince you that children are being tortured, even though there's not one piece of evidence.
And I want to start out by saying that my parents weren't bad people. They were just misinformed people, and I really want to make that point. They were afraid for my health, my sanity, and my spiritual health. The darkness I experienced as the result of this therapy has stayed with me.
To request your help in ending this cruel, inhuman, and degrading practice. He tied down my hands and placed ice on them while showing me erotic pictures of men. He wrapped my hands in hot coils, stuck needles in my fingers, and shocked me with electricity.
The law's limited application has also helped them survive judicial scrutiny, with courts noting that children are especially vulnerable and therefore may require more protection from the state than adults. Debates over conversion therapy bans have avoided discussions of the religious dimensions of the practice. This is in large part because the bans on their face do not apply to religious groups, such that the law's advocates have been able to foreclose discussions regarding the law's impact on religion.